But as the expression goes, a broken clock is right twice a day. And in this instance, that broken clock turns out to be Paul Keating. Now, Paul's come out to cast doubt, and it's rare that I agree with anything Paul Keating says, over Labor's super tax plan, which he warns, without indexation, which is what sensible people are calling for, the plan will capture more young people entering the workforce right today who will accumulate in excess of $3 million at retirement. It's a long way off, but he's right. Keating's comments were put to the Prime Minister this morning. Here's what Anthony...
If someone who starts work today, the average worker will end up with $3 million in super, therefore having their unrealised gains taxed.
No, well, these are very modest changes.
But is Paul Keating right?
Being discussed.
I'm on Paul Keating now.
We are right. We are right. Well, good on you. You stay on Paul. I'll stay on superannuation.
But are you avoiding it because he's right, or is it because he's wrong?
No, I'm talking about superannuation.
Peter's right. They're not modest changes. I mean, they're actually going to tax unrealised gains. And it's not just the PM that's causing headaches for Labor. It's not just ex-Paul Keating PM causing headaches. ACTU Secretary Sally McManus, she also said this is going to have to be indexed.
Over time, I do think it's got to be indexed because you've got to make sure eventually people don't end up there, but that's a very long time in the future. I think that asking, those people not to get, super isn't there to be a tax fraud. It's there to make sure you've got a dignified retirement.
I've talked to former Treasury Assistant Secretary David Pearl about this before. He's back with us. It's not often I say this, about Paul Keating, but he's right in this instance, isn't he? To say unrealised gains, indexation are the two things that you need to look at and potentially change in this legislation.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me on. He's right. Keating was the father of superannuation, as you know, and I think he rightly sees that this ill-conceived tax is a threat to the integrity and public confidence in the future of the superannuation system.
Extraordinarily, I mean, Paul Keating, you would think would back the government. You'd imagine Anthony Albanese speaks to him. But why does Jim Chalmers and the Prime Minister, are they so desperate for money, David, that they simply refuse to change this, or are they running it right up to the line and then at the last minute they're going to either cave on indexation or unrealised gains or both?
Well, I'm not sure that the Prime Minister's on board with this proposal. I suspect he's defending his Treasurer. Jim Chalmers, it seems to me, Steve, is completely isolated on this. Paul Keating opposes it. Even the Greens are proposing that this be indexed. Sally McManus is saying this should be indexed, and Bill Kelty opposes it as well. I suspect many members of Jim Chalmers' caucus think it's a terrible idea as well. So this is being set up as a potential fall for Jim Chalmers, and I think what the Prime Minister has to do is show real leadership and at some point put his Treasurer out of his misery.
One of the things that worries me about this, David, is that Labor have got to deal with the Greens to get anything through the Senate. In fact, they can pass anything they want through the Senate if the Greens agree. Now, the Greens want the level of where this doubling of the tax from 15% to 30% kicks in, brought down to $2 million. I mean, if Chalmers agreed with the Greens to do that and then he gets his way on unrealised gains and indexation, that's even worse for Australians. That's where we could end up.
That's where we could end up. This tax was seen by Jim Chalmers and his captive Treasury Department as a soak the rich exercise. Treasury has a visceral resentment towards self-managed super funds. When I was a Treasury employee and I was in the department for over 20 years, I always saw it and I could never quite understand it. There's nothing wrong with somebody managing their own superannuation fund. But there we have it. And Paul Keating has correctly seen this as a threat to public confidence in the superannuation system. It's not a tax just that will apply to the so-called rich, Steve. It's going to apply to the many. As Paul Keating pointed out, a young person entering the workforce today, earning no more than average wages over their lifetime, will have accumulated more than $3 million of savings. So it's a tax that will ultimately affect the many, not the few.
And eventually Keating got his way because your compulsory taxation level on your salary hit 12% today, July 1. So younger people who are in super, you know, I was a wage earner before super started. It's now 12%. They will get to 3 million. If you're in a workforce at 20 now and you're putting 12% of your salary in, and I must say, David, again, I was staggered today listening to Talkback Radio how ignorant a lot of people are about what super is, whether they're paying it on top of their salary package or whether they're salary sacrificing. Still, people don't understand it. But we're now at 12%. That's a substantial saving which is forced upon people by law.
It is forced savings, and I'm not comfortable any compulsion in our system. I think people are sensible enough to provision for their own retirement. I think it's a scandal that we have 12% of people's incomes controlled by union-dominated funds with employer representatives as well. The funds and the commission, the fees and the commissions that these funds charge are exorbitant, and there doesn't seem to be any accountability. So I think it's remarkable. Can I just say something about Sally McManus? I think it's wonderful that she's drawing attention to the bracket creep inherent in Jim Chalmers' superannuation proposal when she calls for this $3 million to be indexed. Why doesn't she do the same with the non-indexation of our personal tax scales? Millions of union members in Australia and everybody else is hit by bracket creep every year as they're pushed further into higher tax brackets. And Sally McManus and the union movement, who supposedly represent the interests of workers, who work hard through the Fair Work Commission to get higher wages, are quite happy to see Canberra skim off those through bracket creep. I just think it's a scandal that she's silent about a far bigger tax impost on working people.
That's an excellent point. A big anniversary today. Did you have a celebratory lunch? July 2000, we suddenly introduced the GST. It's been 25 years. Who would have thought? Seems like it's been there forever.
Well, it's quite interesting because I remember the Labor Party opposing tooth and nail bringing in the GST. And of course, the GST was a new tax and that's never welcome. But people forget that it paid for, at least helped pay for, massive personal income tax cuts. It was genuine tax reform, was a shift from taxing incomes and savings to taxing consumption, which is what all economists, which is what Treasury traditionally has supported. The Labor Party opposed it until it became part of our system, and now they're in favour of it. So the point I'd make, Steve, and to your listeners, is that owing to bracket creep, those big personal income tax cuts that came with the GST have been eroded away. We now rely on income tax to raise almost 50% of all the revenue. Howard brought it down when he introduced the GST. It's all been eroded away. So we're back where we were with a GST and income tax burdens that date back from before the GST was introduced. The taxpayer loses either way.
Of course we do. Excellent points, David. Thank you for joining us again. I'll see you soon.